If you have any questions during this session, feel free to, as usual, let me know in the members talk, or if you are watching on YouTube or in other platform, in the comment section, and I'll be able to see it here as well, and I will reply to you through voice. So let's do it as usual. Cheers. Let's start with US500. We are overall bearish, right? We already know this from a long-term perspective. We got our impulse movements pushing price lower, correction movements pushing price higher, and so on. However, as I told you last week, if you remember, that I'm speculating that this whole bearish trend might be ending soon because we didn't reach this lower trend line. Because usually, when we are still in a bearish mode, in a full bearish mode, we'll be expecting this big impulse pushing to the lower bound of this falling broadening wedge. However, in this particular case, what happened is we made a low, but it wasn't this like big impulse pushing lower, which means that the bears are still in control, making lower lows, but not as strong as before, or it shows us the potential shift in momentum in advance so we can prepare ourselves. But of course, for the bulls to take over, we still need to see a major high broken upward. For now, this is our last major high, so we might have a new major high to form here, and then this would be the end of this big bearish movement. But for now, let's take it step by step. Like I just like to show you like what to expect or the vision, like to work on before we dive into the current situation. So we know that we are currently here. Let me check my microphone. Everything's working properly. Fantastic. Okay. So we are currently still struggling around the 3.9K, which is currently acting as a support zone. Look at this massive support previously and resistance here, now acting as support as price is retesting it from the upper side. And this is our next resistance, which is also a massive resistance, a supply zone, a resistance zone, multiple rejections from, also lining up with this upper trend line in brown. So these two are very strong support and resistance. Support here, resistance here. So once broken upward, we'll be expecting a bullish continuation from here. Once broken downward, we'll be expecting this major high to form, just like here. So we're expecting a bearish movement, right? So because this is a support now, if it's broken downward, we'll be expecting it to become a resistance and price to push lower till our next support. Now, if this happens, I'm speculating a higher low, like for example, this time. Now we made a lower low, but it wasn't as steep as before. Now, for the second phase of the shift in momentum, I want a higher low and a new major high to form here, and then a break above it. This is a classic shift in momentum. That's it from daily. If you zoom into H4 time frame, we can see that we are currently still here, intersection of this channel and this 3.9K support zone. So I'm speculating the bulls to take over here to retest this resistance, and we might have a bullish movement before the bears take over, or we might break it from here and trade lower. So how do we know if we'll get a reaction here? We zoom into lower time frames, if it would be a break, or we keep on trading lower and break it downward. Okay, and this is a first example of our second phase for the session, which is a channel. So whenever I find a channel, I'll give you a practical example, from it, right? So first, if you zoom into H4 time frame, so like this is how channels or like wedges help us feel the market. So we drew this trend line starting from here, and when we approached this trend line again, we knew that we might be able to drop lower from here, especially that if we look left, we can see that this zone is also a very strong support and resistance, right? So we apply the same logic now here for this one. Support and resistance lining up with this trend line previously, trend line lining up with the resistance, support, and so on. If you zoom out, maybe you can find also more rejections, right? So like this is why it's very important to start from the higher time frames, because we've got two types of channels, right? We've got the one with the bigger ones, which you can see here as a practical example from daily, and we've got the shorter term ones. Okay, so daily and weekly are usually just to show us the overall direction and act as a non-horizontal support and resistance, as you can clearly see. While from H4, like it will help us understand the price more. But for me, for the trigger channels or a trend line in general, are M30 and H1. But here I got an H4 one. So this is just very similar to daily and H4, but like it follows the price action more. So you can see that price rejected it previously multiple times. So now we're expecting a rejection. So we are bullish as long as we are inside this channel, or at least above this lower channel trend line in red. Now, if you break it downward, it would indicate that we are no longer in a bullish trend, right? Because usually we should be making higher lows and higher highs, right? So if you break it downward, we are no longer in a bullish trend. And even if you don't have anything on the chart, right? So we know that we are bullish, correction, impulse, and price is making higher lows, higher highs, right? So this is our last low here, lining up with this high as well. If you go left, lining up with this high, you go left, lining up with this low. So this is also a supply and resistance. So if it's broken downward, it would be an indication that, yeah, this bullish trend is no longer in play. We most probably will have a shift in momentum, and this would become an impulse, and then we'll be expecting lower highs and lower lows. Okay. So let me get back my drawings because I can't live like this. So this is it. If broken downward, we'll be expecting this movement. Now, if you zoom into H1 time frame, we can apply the very same logic, okay? So we are bearish, making lower highs and lower lows, right? And if we break above this high right here, we'll be expecting a rejection from this channel. Meanwhile, we can trade lower like this, go into consolidation before we take over, the bulls take over. So this is basically it. This is the high that I'm keeping an eye on. Meanwhile, and until we break this high, we are still bearish from a short-term perspective. Yes, bearish, but short-term. If you zoom out, this is it. We are bearish inside this big long-term one. So this one, for example, is very similar to this one, or this one is a correction movement downwards. So if you want, long story short, for US500, if we break above this high, we'll be expecting the next bullish impulse to start. However, I don't think we will have this big impulse as before, because lately, as you can see, price failed to make a higher high, instead made an equal high. So I'm speculating a bullish movement, maybe till these highs, or maybe like a little bit above it before the bears take over again. Anyway, let's take it step by step. If this happens, bulls take over. If this happens, right, the bears will take over. Meanwhile, we can go like this before trading higher or trading lower. That's it for US500. Like we spent time here, like more than usual, but it's fine because we went over educational stuff as well. If you have any questions, let me know. Meanwhile, I'll keep on like diving through our charts. Okay, so I'll go over the DXY now, and then I'm checking the chat again. For DXY, we can see that we are still sitting around the support zone, which we previously had from last week. If you remember, we have a very strong support area here because it's also a demand zone, as we had an aggressive movement upward from, and price is now filling it. It's also a support and resistance, now acting as a support zone. So we'll be looking for a bullish reversal. However, this is the biggest correction of all time of the previous bearish trend. So which means that the bears are clearly pushing more than usual. We might have a bullish move, but I don't think we'll have a higher high like next. I'm still speculating this bullish movement to test the previous low, lining up with this previous high, also this wick here, maybe till this supply zone before we trade lower again. Or it will, or like if you want at the same time, it will form like this head and shoulders pattern. If you trade higher, this would be it. And it will also be a low broken downward. So this is our impulse, a correction, and then the next impulse will keep on pushing price lower. But first, I'm speculating a correction from here Of course, unless this support is broken down, then we'll be expecting further bearish movement from here. But again and again, as I mentioned, I'm still speculating a correction. For the correction to be confirmed from a higher time frame, we need to see a break above this one from daily. If this happens, we'll be expecting one more bullish movement before the bears take over. As I showed you, we've got this supply zone lining up with this previous lows, lining up with this trend line previously as support, now acting as a resistance, right? So this is indeed a massive, massive zone. Just like US500, this is a massive zone, a massive zone. For the DXY, this is basically at around 109.5 till 110 is a very strong resistance. Meanwhile, we are here, okay? If you zoom into H4, I can't really say much. We have been struggling here. We broke above this high, then we made an equal low, and we are currently here. So now we are forming like a double bottom pattern. This is our neckline, as I showed you from daily. It's the last major high. If broken upward, we'll be expecting this bullish movement till this supply, as I showed you from daily. Meanwhile, we are just right here. If you zoom into H1, the boost took over here. We had our impulse, a correction, and we are currently in this impulse movement. As I mentioned at the start, like a Fed chair, like he has a speech like in about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So let's expect volatility in the market. It depends on what he says. Like the traders will get clues from it, and let's see if it will push the DXY higher. In this case, we'll be expecting everything else to go down, or vice versa. We'll be expecting this bearish movement. However, like the reaction might be short term, because even if you trade higher from here, we will have this high that we need to break, or if you push lower, we have these lows that we need to break. Okay, so short term we might go higher or go lower, but from a long-term perspective, we still need to see to break below this support or above this like the double bottom neckline, which is this one, for the boost to kick in. Okay, that's it. Okay, so Tel, Dego, Doge, Reef. Wow, so many requests. Okay, so like Bukhari, you are already requested 4 so far. I'll try my best to go over them all. If no one else requests any analysis. So if someone else wants to request any altcoin analysis, let me know. If not, I'll go over the ones that Bukhari mentioned. Okay, let's go to USDT dominance. A very interesting chart indeed. We can clearly see it from weekly. This is a massive, massive high because it's from weekly. Okay, so let me give you an example. This is a high broken upward. Look at the reaction here and traded higher, right? So look, this is a high broken upward, and look at the reaction here. Okay, so this is like because it's from weekly. Okay, so the higher the time frame, the more volume, the more data inside this candle or this high. This is why like price tends to respect like the ones from higher time frames more. Anyway, we've got this high here that price is currently retesting, especially from daily. It's a massive, massive support and resistance, previously acting as a resistance zone, previously here as a support, and now it's a support zone. Okay, it's true that the past 1 or 2 weeks were bearish, so it was good for for the crypto market, but like I'm speculating that it wouldn't last long because we've got this support here, unless, of course, unless we break the support downward now. Okay, in this case, we'll be expecting further bearish movement till where? Till this demand zone, lining up with this support and resistance, right? So multiple rejections from lining up with this trend line right here. So if you want, long story short, let me put an arrow here, copy from it. So this is it. While speculating a bullish movement from here, if the bears take over, we'll be expecting a bearish movement till this area where we'll be expecting a bullish movement from. Okay, that's it from USDT dominance. If you go to daily time frame, If you zoom in, we can see it even better. We are currently trading inside this big descending triangle. If you go to daily, we can even see it better. Let me make it appear on weekly, sorry, on daily. Okay, so this is it. So this is our descending triangle, as you can see. So if it's broken downward, we would also be breaking below this support around 7.8%. In this case, we'll be expecting this bearish movement. Meanwhile, we are here, and it is a support zone, especially that even if you delete everything here, okay, let me show you what I mean. Okay, so this is also a demand zone, and this demand zone is still fresh, as you can see. So price is diving now inside this demand. So for the bears to take over, we need to see a break below these the 7.85%. Meanwhile, the bulls can still kick in. Even if we have a short-term bearish movement, we can still speculate the buyers to kick in. Now we've got a channel, so let's get a practical example here. We've got our impulse, right, pushing price lower, making a lower low, a correction, and we are currently in this impulse movement. Let's see if we'll get this full impulse to the lower bounds before the bulls take over again. For now, we are stuck inside a consolidation here, which we can see even better. And the good thing, or if you want, like the bears are showing strength because we broke below these lows. So what will happen if you break it downward? We'll be expecting further bearish movement. If you go lower, we'll be expecting still the bulls to kick in. If you go zoom into H1 time frame, we can see that this is the low I showed, or the zone I showed you from H4, lining up with these lows. So for the bulls to take over here and start the bullish movements, we need to see a break above the zone, above this swing high, also above this zone right here. In this case, we'll be expecting a bullish movement. Meanwhile, we are stuck here inside a small range. So let's see which way it's going to go. If we trade lower, this is a support still, and that's it. Okay,